Okay, well, I started the talk off by trying to explain the problems of dyslexia, and that it wasn't a problem about whether dyslexia exists or doesn't exist, and that's not a really meaningful question. What we know is that there are lots of people, children and adults, who struggle to learn to read, and it's a very severe and complex problem. The dyslexia debate is essentially about, of those people who struggle to learn to read, is there a subgroup of some kind which we should call dyslexic, which is different to those other people who also struggle? In other words, is it worth someone sending their child off to get an assessment of dyslexia when they already know their child has a complex and severe reading problem? What I've argued in talk is that there's three problems. Firstly, we have no clear, consistent, coherent understanding as to what this dyslexia condition might be if it's not simply poor reading and it's something for a smaller group. Secondly, there is no relationship between a dyslexic diagnosis and the kind of intervention or treatment or educational program that we would provide, which is additional to or different from that we would provide for any child or adult who's struggling to learn to read in this way. And thirdly, I pose the question of that if the dyslexia label enables people to get additional resources of some kind or additional help or more sympathetic hearing, there are a whole load of other people who fail to get the label but they also have severe problems with reading, and this is a massive problem. And I was arguing tonight that the way that we look at dyslexia at the moment leads a whole load of people to suffer quite substantially. Well, for many years I'd struggled to understand what dyslexia is or was. When I was a teacher and a psychologist, I tried to understand what it was, and I really continually struggled to work out what this condition was. I assumed there was a condition called dyslexia that needed special help, and I didn't seem to know how to diagnose it, even though I was a child psychologist. And then I finally came to a point where I realised that actually it didn't work like that, that the term means all things to all people. Shortly afterwards, we made a television programme for Channel 4 Dispatches in 2005, where we really put forward these points in the programme. And then periodically for the next few years, I was interviewed on television and me on the radio and the newspapers. But I got a lot of fairly hostile messages from people saying, "That's your opinion, but you've got no evidence." So I thought that's a fair challenge. I should step up and respond. And so in 2008, I approached Cambridge University Press and said I'd like to write a book which looked at the field and analysed it in great detail. But what was really important was we just didn't look at the educational literature, but what we tried to do was to synthesise work done across many, many disciplines. So we tried to look at genetics, neuroscience, cognitive science or psychology, education, educational policy and social policy. And we looked at the literature and we worked on what was known in each of those fields, and then we sort of pulled it all together and tried to synthesise this and that had never been done before. And it took me 5 years working alongside Elena Grigorenko, and finally we produced this book, which was, I think, reviewed the field in quite significant detail and depth.